When it comes to testing, there is an important term called test coverage. In other words, how much of our code is being executed during test execution. Because usually our code contains all kinds of conditional statements, and sometimes our tests might not go through all possible paths depending on the results of conditional statements. So it is very important to cover our source code by tests as much as possible. So that means that we need to write our tests in such a way that it will execute all possible ways that our code can run through. And when it comes to coverage, Vitest provides us with a couple of libraries that we can additionally install to enable this test coverage feature. So we're going to use the first option and install a library called coverage v8. I'm gonna copy over this command and run it in the terminal. Let's wait until the installation process completes. And then in order to run tests with the coverage enabled, we just have to execute the following command. And to be able to run this command via npm, I'm going to add the following npm script in my package.json file. So let's open up this file. In here I'm going to add one more key. Let's call this script test:coverage. So now we will be able to run our test with coverage by running npm run test:coverage command. Currently in our configuration there are a couple of additional reporters used, and every time we're going to execute our tests, newly generated files with a report will be created. So I'm gonna remove all these additional reporters to avoid creating new files. And then let's try to run tests with coverage by running npm run test:coverage. And now, besides showing stats of test execution, we also see such table which shows how much our source code has been covered by tests. For example, in here we can see that all functions from the functions.ts module have been tested. And not only that, but we also went through all possible ways these functions can be executed, covering all conditional blocks as well. These numbers represent how many statements have been executed during test execution in percentage, how many conditional branches, amount of functions, and amount of lines of our source code in percentage. And just because our project is Vue.js application, we haven't touched Vue.js related parts, and which is why test coverage shows that some files haven't been covered fully. But this is fine because in this course we're only focusing on JavaScript unit testing, which means we do not test any Vue related code. Another way to enable coverage is via configuration file. In here we'll add another object under the key coverage and an option enabled with a value of true, like so. And now we can simply run tests by using npm test, and the coverage will be enabled automatically. And the table with the coverage is still being generated. There is also another convenient way how we can review coverage report, and that is by using Vitest UI. So to be able to see coverage result directly in the browser, we have to add reporter with the name of HTML in here. And if after this we'll try to run tests by using Vitest UI, the new browser tab will be opened with Vitest UI. And here we see an additional icon, by clicking which we're seeing coverage report. Here we can click around and open up different files with source code to see which lines were executed and which lines were not during test execution. For example, if we're seeing the green color next to every line, that means these lines have been executed during test execution. But if we'll take a look in another file, here we're also seeing red color, which means that those lines and functions were not tested yet. As you can see, it is much more convenient to view generated coverage report directly in the browser. And if we would want to still show coverage table in the terminal, we'll have to use text option. And after running npm test in the terminal, we're seeing coverage report. And this is what test coverage means, a very important concept when it comes to automated testing. Link to the source code will be in the video description.